Karen Clayfield had always been the self-appointed ruler of Maplewood Lane. She had an opinion on everything: how lawns should be mowed, where cars should be parked, and, most importantly, who belonged. She had a long history of calling the police on her neighbors for the smallest infractions, but this time, she was about to take things too far. It was a bright Saturday afternoon when Malik and Jordan, two teenage brothers, tossed a football back and forth in their front yard. Laughter echoed through the street as they ran routes and perfected their catches, enjoying the kind of carefree moment that childhood was built on. To them, it was just another weekend. But to Karen, it was an opportunity to stir up trouble. She stomped across the street, her face twisted in annoyance. "Take your game somewhere else," she shrieked. The boys exchanged confused glances, unsure if she was serious. "This is our yard," Malik said, gripping the football. Karen's face reddened with rage. "I don't care. I don't want to hear all that noise. Go play at the park with your kind." Jordan, younger but quick-witted, frowned. "Our kind?" Karen scoffed. "You know exactly what I mean. This is a quiet neighborhood. We don't need troublemakers like you disturbing the peace." Malik took a step forward, his voice firm but controlled. "We live here. We've lived here longer than you." Karen's lip curled. "Watch your tone, boy." When the brothers turned back to their game, ignoring her, Karen's frustration boiled over. She took another step onto their property and pointed a bony finger at them. "I've had enough of your disrespect. You think you can do whatever you want?" Malik sighed, already used to dealing with people like her. "Lady, we're just playing football." But Karen wasn't interested in reason. Her eyes flickered with an idea. She pulled out her phone and, with a dramatic gasp, shrieked, 911. "Yes, I'm being attacked. These thugs just threw a football at me and won't leave me alone." Jordan's jaw dropped. "What? That's a lie." Karen clutched her arm, pretending to be in pain. "Oh my God. I think they broke my arm." Malik and Jordan stood frozen. They hadn't even touched her, but they knew how this could go. The wrong cops, the wrong assumptions, it could end badly. What Karen didn't realize was that her theatrics had an audience. Neighbors had stepped onto their porches, shaking their heads in disgust. Across the street, Mr. Alvarez's security camera had been recording the entire encounter. "She's lying," a voice called out. Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman next door, had seen everything. "We all saw what happened, Karen." But Karen was too far gone in her act, fake tears streaming down her face. "Send the police now," she wailed. And just like that, sirens blared in the distance. The truth was about to catch up with her. Karen's voice rose to an ear-piercing wail as she clutched her phone like a lifeline. "They're attacking me," she sobbed into the receiver, staggering back as if she had actually been struck. "Two big, aggressive boys, they won't leave me alone. I think they hit me with the football on purpose." Malik and Jordan stood frozen in disbelief. Their football lay untouched in the grass, yet Karen cradled her arm as if it had been shattered. Jordan opened his mouth to protest, but Malik grabbed his shoulder. "Let her talk," he muttered. "We know the truth." Karen turned her back to them, ensuring the dispatcher couldn't hear anything but her frantic cries. "They're threatening me now. I'm scared for my life," she shrieked. She let out a shaky breath, glancing at the boys with a smug expression. "Please hurry. I don't feel safe." From down the street, the wail of sirens grew louder. Karen's panic act melted into satisfaction. She had done this before, spun a lie, played the victim, and watched the police handle the rest. But this time, she had made a mistake. Karen had assumed she controlled the narrative, but she had underestimated her neighbors. People had stepped onto their porches, arms crossed, shaking their heads. Some held phones, recording the scene. Across the street, Mr. Alvarez leaned against his porch railing, watching with an unimpressed expression. He had seen it all. The police cruiser pulled up, and two officers stepped out, hands resting on their belts. Karen launched into her performance the moment they were within earshot. "Thank God you're here," she gasped, rushing toward them. "They've been harassing me all afternoon. I was just walking by when they threw a football at me and started calling me names." Malik exhaled sharply, but before he could speak, Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman who had lived in the neighborhood for decades, stepped forward. "That's a lie, and you know it," she said firmly, her voice carrying over the quiet street. Karen's head snapped toward her. "Excuse me." Mr. Alvarez spoke next, his tone calm but pointed. "We've all been watching, Karen. You marched over there, got in their faces, and started shouting. They didn't even touch you." Another neighbor, a woman with a baby on her hip, raised her phone. "I got it all on video. Want to see?" Karen's expression faltered. That's not." One of the officers held up a hand. "Ma'am, is there security footage?" Mr. Alvarez nodded. "Yep. It caught everything. You might want to see it before making any arrests." Karen's confident stance wavered as the officers exchanged looks. One of them gestured toward the security camera. "Let's take a look." Karen opened her mouth, but no words came out. The tide had turned, and for the first time, she wasn't in control. Karen's breath hitched as the officers stared at her with cold, scrutinizing eyes. Still gripping her arm, she forced out another fake sob. "Those boys assaulted me," she insisted, her voice breaking for dramatic effect. But the officers weren't swayed. One of them, a tall, no-nonsense cop with a stern expression, crossed his arms. "Ma'am, we have multiple witnesses saying otherwise." The second officer pulled out a tablet, where Mr. Alvarez's security footage was already playing. The crisp video showed Karen marching up to Malik and Jordan, screaming at them unprovoked. The officers watched as she got in their faces, hurled slurs, and then, clear as day, grabbed her phone to lie about an attack that never happened. There was no football hitting her, no threats from the teenagers, just Karen's manufactured chaos. Karen's face drained of color. She took an uneasy step back. That's not what happened," she stammered, but her voice wavered with panic. The first officer exhaled sharply. "Ma'am, the footage contradicts your statement. You filed a false police report." Karen shook her head furiously. "No, you don't understand. They..." Click. The sound of handcuffs snapping around her wrists silenced her. "You're under arrest for making a false report, harassment, and trespassing," the officer said, reading her rights as he tightened the cuffs. Karen's mouth hung open in shock. "Wait. No, this is a mistake. But her pleas fell on deaf ears. As the officers led her toward the squad car, neighbors clapped and cheered. Mrs. Thompson smirked. "About time." Malik and Jordan stood in stunned silence as the woman who had tormented them was finally held accountable. Jordan looked up at his older brother. "Did that really just happen?" Malik let out a slow breath and nodded. "Yeah. It did." Karen's downfall didn't stop there. When she was taken into custody, a deeper investigation into her history revealed a disturbing pattern. She had made several false reports over the years, targeting people she didn't think belonged in the neighborhood. Some of her past victims even came forward, sharing their own horror stories. At her trial, the judge didn't hold back. "Your actions not only wasted police resources but put innocent lives at risk," he said sternly. "You have a history of weaponizing law enforcement against innocent people, and that ends today." The courtroom gasped when Karen's sentence was announced, 7 years in prison. The judge made it clear, this was a warning to anyone who thought they could manipulate the system with lies and prejudice. Back on Maplewood Lane, life moved on. Malik and Jordan continued playing football in their front yard, their laughter echoing freely without fear. The neighborhood, once ruled by Karen's tyranny, felt lighter, freer. And though she was gone, the lesson remained: justice always catches up with those who think they're above it.